This episode of Navel Gazing is sponsored by valleygivesback.org. Adding a Valley charity to your estate plan creates a lasting legacy that tells future generations what causes matter to you. Your action will inspire others to follow your lead and make a difference. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley community forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Learn more at valleygivesback.org, an initiative of the Valley Community Foundation. Plan now, give later, and impact tomorrow at valleygivesback.org.
For hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Hey everybody, welcome to Valley Navel Gazing. My name is Eugene Driscoll. This is a podcast of valleyindy.org. Today we have two very special guests, and it's Derby. This whole episode's Derby, Derby, Derby. As my two guests now scramble to turn off their phones. If it goes off, it goes off. That adds to the ambiance.
Absolutely.
So that voice you just heard is Derby Mayor Rich Dziekan. Mayor Dziekan, thank you so much for coming on Navel Gazing.
Thank you, Eugene. It's always a pleasure coming up here and talking Derby with you.
Talking Derby. And then joining Mayor Dziekan, making his 18th appearance on this podcast, is Mr. Carmen DiCenso, the city's economic development liaison. Welcome, Mr. DiCenso.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you for having us.
So I thought, first of all, we got a whole laundry list of topics that we're going to talk about, and I'll try to go quickly and not blab too much. But I thought to establish a baseline for our listeners and or readers out there who maybe don't follow the day-to-day ins and outs of what's happening with Derby government. Carmen, you're the economic development liaison. So what have you been up to? It's a part-time position that you took when... He laughs at that because I would assume you're probably... I don't want to get the city in any kind of labor law trouble. but generally speaking, what are you doing every day? Give us a rundown of what the job is and what it entails.
Primarily, my job is to coordinate between developers and the city of Derby and the Board of Aldermen. So since day one, I have pushed the mayor and Andrew, the chief of staff, towards selling the properties that Derby has been sitting on for years and to sell them. And that's what we have done. And we have a public auction coming up on July 11th.
Okay.
And we have 8 properties this time around that we're going to auction off. And another few months after that, we'll have other properties that we'll also auction off. Since December, we have been working with the Beretta Group. I call it the Beretta Group only because that's the person who owns the property right now, the Beretta family, down on Factory Street. We've been working very hard with them to establish their project that they're going to do on Factory Street.
So let me just jump in for 1 second because we had two different issues there. First, how did the properties that you're selling, how did those come into the city's possession? Are these former blighted properties?
Yes, some of them are former blighted properties that the city took over, knocked the buildings down, and the lot lays vacant, not generating any tax money. And, the business of a city is to build your tax base, to try to get the pressure off of the homeowners and taxpayers of the city. So
sorry.
That's right.
Are there any deed restrictions or anything like that? Because one thing that people worry about, I know in my neighborhood, blight was a real issue that, 3 properties decimated my property values because they had become blighted because people, after the recession, and they were upside down the mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. And then the worry is that, somebody comes in, flips it, and then rents it out to 1,000 people. And are there any kind of deed restrictions that keep these as single families or anything like that?
Yes, there are. There are. It depends where the properties are, and it depends also on the not the location, but the surrounding properties. So if if a lot is in the middle of umpteen houses that are 2, 3, 4, 5 families, we have restricted them to only 2 families. And also some are restricted to no buildings. So we're trying to reduce density, but sell the property to the adjoining landowner to be used as parking.
And that's one of the, I mean, when you look at sort of the underlying issues in Derby, density is one of them. It's like the city's just developed to the tilt. And in some parts of town, I'd say, where I am, overdeveloped.
No, absolutely.
And that's one of the things that's interesting to hear.
No, absolutely. And then let me just
Go ahead, Mayor.
charm in here a little bit. Working with Carmen right off of day one, I mean, for 6 months. And once we saw these properties were just sitting here, and I mean, he's been working nonstop with this, with the attorneys to get the deed restrictions and do all the background checks on it. And unfortunately, I was hoping it was going to be done in a couple months, but, government takes time getting through the
lawyers take that. Yeah.
It took a while, but like I said, it's 6 months now. We're ready to sell these off. We're going to have revenue coming in back on the tax list, like Carmen just said. So we're excited about that. So we're going to have, try to build our fund balance back up, try to send some of this money into there, and then some other projects in the city that we want to get done for beautification and stuff. So, I mean, we're on the right track. We really are on the right track. So.
And then going to Factory Street, this is the former Housatonic Lumber property? Okay.
Yes.
And there's a redevelopment project that's been, I don't know if it's been officially proposed, but it's definitely been talked about at the P&Z level.
Yes.
Can you describe what's happening
there?
There
is a consortium, a group of developers, investors that have joined forces with the Beretta family to create this group, who has now purchased the Jacob property, the scrap metal.
Oh.
They have, so that eventually, hopefully, will be closing and relocating. And they have proposed with they brought in their builder, they brought in their land use attorney, and who was working very well with our land use attorney and our zoning board to formulate the new codes for downtown overlay zone. This, I know
you're holding up a conceptual.
Yep.
I don't know if I guess a site plan. Okay.
Right.
And it shows
this is Main Street. This is Factory Street, and this is what they have on board for their phase 1, 2, and 3.
So I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 building pads where the Housatonic property is. It looks like 150 units of housing, and then commercial on half of the first floor with 225 parking spaces. So we're talking a mixed-use development in that former.
Yes.
And is this theirs too?
Yes.
Or they own the opposite side of the street?
No. They own all of this property.
On over here.
This is Jacob's.
Oh, okay.
This is the city of Derby.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Right.
And is the same group interested
Yes.
in... Oh, okay.
Yes.
So that's more than I thought. I thought it was just Housatonic property. So
No.
you're talking about them going on both sides of the street there.
Correct. And then
that's Halleck's Landing, right? Is that what
That's
we're talking
correct.
about? Okay.
Right.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So have they given any indication? We always say mixed use. What does that mean?
Retail on the bottom floors and apartments above.
Any idea of what type of retail? I know it's very early, but that's what people want to know.
No, not yet, no.
Oh, so that's exciting. So when do they formally come forward with and submit site plans? Is there like a timeline?
Yeah, their timeline is to start their project at the same time the state starts Route 34.
Oh, and that brings us to...
Next year.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that project's cursed because every couple of years, the Route 34 project, since we've been around in 2009.
Well, I think we're the closest right now that we've ever been. We've been in touch with the Naugatuck Valley COG, Council of Government, who's handling the project, the state. And the last thing was the sewer line location in the roadway. So we got that up to them now. So it's coming on their final design. It's going to go up to the state. Once it gets up to the state has to review it, the final review. And then we get it back, and that's when we have to put pressure on the commissioner up there to have his people do their job so we can get Derby going.
Yeah,
Absolutely going.
It's getting a little painful there because as you
is.
drive by, the buildings they're not abandoned, but they're marked for demo, but they're sort of sitting there. And the hope was that the demo would have already happened, but that's sort of been...
But they already took down that one section of the old Housatonic Lumber, the old Calvert's buildings down now. The Derby Feed Tower, that went down real quick. So, I mean, we're opening up the land right now, getting it ready. And one thing that's another sticking point is the Army Corps of Engineers. So we're working on getting them to the table to explain what we have to do. And we have a maintenance plan in the works for the levees and the dikes that are along the Housatonic and the Naugatuck rivers.
And that's like a $15,000 project, if I remember correctly, right?
Okay, the $15,000 only for the study.
For the study.
On what has to be done.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The actual work itself, whatever our Public Works Department cannot handle, then we would have to go outside for.
Okay. And that's because you can't put anything there unless the Army Corps of Engineers say your levees are okay.
Right.
And don't forget that's not only downtown, that's also behind BJ's. They consider it as one levee. We
think of it as different things,
levee and
but it's the whole thing.
But we had a meeting with them a couple weeks ago, and they had to cancel. And so we're trying to get them back at the table. And right now, we just getting a call up to Senator Murphy's office to see if he can help us get them. Because it's holding us up, and Derby needs to start moving forward.
Yeah, that seems
for one organization to be putting a monkey wrench in this for us, it doesn't seem fair.
There are a lot of bureaucracies with this project.
Right.
It's almost like, people, when they go to City Hall, it's like, oh, God, I have so much to do just to get a building permit. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it's the city that has to deal with there's a tremendous amount of red tape, some of which it sort of appears out of nowhere.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So one thing we did was our food court ordinances for the food carts that we have, but with Bad Sons, so they have those vehicles that come in, and it, like you said, it would take sometimes 2 months for a hot dog van or something to come in to sell food there. So the owners down there came in. You understand they were upset for for how long it took and everything. So finally, we got the ordinance. We got everybody together, the police chief, the lawyers. Boom. Now it's cut down
and
the time.
What you're talking about, for anybody who's not familiar with, Bad Sons is a relatively new brewery in Derby, and they don't serve food themselves, but they have this, it's like the new trend where you bring in all these food trucks where you have a variety of food that you couldn't serve yourself. And one of the things that was happening, there's all this sort of red tape involved in setting up a food truck, and you sort of streamline that to make it easier.
And this is the new wave of how businesses are running around there. You go out to Brantford, and so they have the food carts there. So we wanted to make it easier for the businesses to be able to do their business here. So we streamlined it for them.
And then just one last question on Route 34. Yep. When is the break ground? What is that term? When is the groundbreaking? Yeah, when are they going to put the shovel in the ground with the magic?
We're hoping by the end of June of this month, of this year, to have our plans up to the state. And once the state engineers have it, they have to go through it and make sure everything's acceptable. And then we get it back. It goes out to bid, and then we get the shovels in the ground. So we're looking at springtime. Spring of next year. That's what.
Spring, ideally. That's if everything goes and everybody.
When I got into the office back in December, and I talked to COG up there and Council of Governments, and that's what the timeline was back then. And it's still looking good right there. Yeah. And it's just a matter of getting WPCA, the Water Pollution Control. We needed the sewer lines in there. So now we know where those are going, and I'm excited, but I don't want to get too excited because how sometimes you get.
It comes back to bite you in the butt. That's exactly. That's sort of been the unraveling of a couple of administrations, I think. Hi, this is Eugene Driscoll, most likely interrupting myself to bring you a message from our sponsor, valleygivesback.org. Adding a Valley charity to your estate plan creates a lasting legacy that tells future generations what causes mattered to you. Your action will inspire others to follow your lead and make a difference. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley community forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Learn more at valleygivesback.org, an initiative of the Valley Community Foundation. Plan now, give later, impact tomorrow at valleygivesback.org. How about Big Y? This was huge news. Walmart moved out. You had an empty plaza for a while, which was sort of a thumb in the eye of Derby. But Big Y is going in there, and apparently, from what I've heard, the owner of the center is embarking on a pretty big redevelopment plan.
Absolutely.
You guys have some info, outline?
I've been in touch with him, and he's looking, to see what kind of tax incentives that we can afford to give him, which actually the city is, as I speak, the city is working on the tax incentive program. Also, I have talked to the builder from Big Y. He was in our building department office, and he is also the builder who built the Big Y in Shelton. So I'm pretty sure that it's probably going to look a lot like the Shelton Big Y.
So they're going to do some tear downs and rebuild essentially that Walmart.
Yes.
Correct.
So yeah, and that Shelton Big Y is a nice looking shopping center in terms of shopping centers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think initially,
not that people usually think they're beautiful, but it's a nice looking.
And I think they were giving us a timeline of the spring of next year when they initially started. Yeah. So.
Okay. And then the tax incentive program. Can you talk? I mean, from what I understand, one of the things about Derby, the city's at a bit of a disadvantage because the mill rate's lower in Shelton for various reasons because they had open space that they were able to carefully manage and promote big commercial development and the Cinto Towers and all that, while Derby was always the city, sort of the hub of the valley back in the day. So we're more landlocked, we're more developed. So in order to compete, to lure people in, the philosophy, I believe, is to try to give them some type of tax break to come in and invest in Derby. Is that
absolutely? Because, and Gene, and Carmen will tell you too. We're getting calls weekly. They want to build because the location of Derby, Route 34, Route 8, Route 15, up to 84, 90. We're right in the middle of everything. So we're kind of mirrored off of Orange and Trumbull's ordinances that they had for their tax incentives, and so we're like tweaking it for so it could fit for Derby. And so we've been getting calls, a couple of the places that are in the process of renovating right now, and so hopefully within the next few months we'll have everything ironed out, and we'll put that out there to entice people to come to Derby and just do their business here and give them a little incentive to stay here.
And this is something that's being formulated with the Board of Aldermen.
Yes, the Board of Aldermen have already voted to approve a committee to do the study. Right. So that's where we are right now. The stature of the committee has been approved by the Board of Aldermen. Now the chairman of the Board of Aldermen plus two other Board of Aldermen, the chairman of the tax board, and two tax members, myself, Mayor Dziekan, and chief of staff will all be on the committee.
Okay, and then one thing that I'll bet that'll happen eventually, because we've seen this happen elsewhere. When the word tax incentive or that phrase comes up, that can be dangerous politically because it's an easy thing to they're giving tax breaks to developers and I'm paying full taxes. Like, how will you explain to people why you think this is needed? Because it's one of those easy political things that people beat each other over the head over.
That's a good question.
And there's a history of it in Derby where one side says, here's what we're going to do, and then it just gets...
Well, it's a good question. I mean, but people need incentive to come and do a project. So they're going to spend their money. They're going to stimulate the economy, the local economy with the builders and everybody coming in there. And they're pumping a lot of money in there. So if you give them whatever number you're going to use, 50, 75%, and then over 5 years, you're going to be brought up to 100% you're paying your taxes, the incentive to come here and build and like I said, build up the city, excuse me, and to and bring your company or bring whatever business that you're going to bring in here. I think it's a win-win for Derby, because not only are you going to have your employees in here, they're going to be patronizing their local businesses. So for what we're giving away or what they're not paying, we're still getting some. And eventually over that 5 years or 7 years, whatever it's going to be, then they'll be at the top ring right there, and they're going to be paying the fair share. But to get them in here to help them out to spend their money, I think it's a win-win. I don't think it's a loss for us. And
as you know, Eugene, you're a resident of the city. We've been waiting 25 years for developers to come in. And for anyone, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, to complain about giving a developer a tax incentive program to adhere to is crazy.
Otherwise, they're going to Oxford.
Right. Exactly. Go to Shelton, go to Oxford, go to Ansonia, anywhere, because everybody else has a tax incentive program. Right. Why shouldn't we have one to entice the developers to come to Derby?
And that empty lot isn't bringing any tax money in right now. So half is better than nothing, which would help our tax rate. So that's the way I look at it. So the naysayers, like, all right, then leave it empty if you want.
And these are imagined naysayers at this point.
Exactly.
I'm just going on my experience.
Nobody has come forward to say anything yet. No.
Right.
Right. Okay, and then you had talked about right before we went on. You just sent out a way to collect back taxes because obviously, like
Yes.
Derby isn't. We're not. I mean, the chief of police said it at the tax board meeting the other night. He's like, "Hey, we're a poor community. I mean, when it comes right down to it, the city's not rolling in cash,
Right.
And so you can see it at tax board, and you remember the tax board, so you know better than anybody.
And well, what happened when I was in Ansonia, chief of staff over there, they did a tax lien sale over there. They were doing, and so I brought that idea over here, talked to Carmen and corporate counsel, and we were kicking the idea about doing that. But we put our heads together and we're like, well, let's send out a reminder letter. So we sent out letters to I think 50 of the top back taxes, and since 4 months, Carmen,
Yep.
we collected about $500,000 came in without having to do a lien sale and put these people in a position where they're
You're taking their property.
right.
Exactly.
So now they're making they're making payments and they're paying off their back stuff. And like I said, we just picked up $500,000 that was sitting on the books. So I was like very, very impressed by that.
And that's a massive amount in the Derby budget because it's
Absolutely.
relative. And what do you, by the time this airs, I don't know if a budget will be approved. This will probably be Tuesday or Wednesday. But the tax board is currently considering a budget.
I think it's next Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it's next Wednesday, but kind of flat, maybe up, maybe, but it's going to be right there. I mean, a couple of the programs that were started, prior to when I get there, the street lights. I mean, we're going to be saving about $90,000 on that. I looked into see if there was any fat in this budget, and I found a few things. Whittick Park, we ended up saving about $15,000 on there. And now I have Public Works doing the work up there, seeing how they don't have the baseball field and the football field now, so we utilized the manpower up there.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So we were able to keep it in-house now. Went to a local business in Ansonia, so they do the fertilizing. They're DEEP certified, so they're able to sign off on everything that needs to be done up there. So there was a quick $15,000 right there that we saved. Copying machines, water, that I think I told you the last time we were here, but every little bit helps. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been going through it. And so we've been able to cut some things.
And then in terms of the big news of the week as we record this in Derby was this possible and this idea by Dr. Conway and the police chief to get a school resource officer up at Derby High School.
Absolutely.
How do you think that's going to work out? Is it something you support?
I do. And, being a former officer.
I don't know who would say, I don't support
absolutely.
school safety.
Because, when I retired, people are going to be like, wow. But, at 47, I'm still young, and a lot of officers are retiring in their late 40s, early 50s. And I know a lot of them now are getting hired in like Old Lyme, Old Saybrook, and they're seasoned 25-year troopers, officers, and they're hiring them as SROs, school resource officers. So they're already trained. You're an experienced officer. You can deal with the people. You can deal with the kids. You have the experience. It's not like you're coming right out of the academy and you have to learn. I'm a proponent for that. If we can get someone that's retiring, I just spoke to a deputy chief down the line towards New York that's looking to do something. And I'm like, wow, it popped at the same time. So I'm going to talk to the chief about that and see if we can do a lateral transfer in, and we'll work with the union and see what they think. But, there's so many certified officers and qualified officers, high-ranking officers that I think will do a great job for there. And with our campus, so unique it is that the middle school and the high school are right there, so that they go back and forth. So I think it would be a great idea.
And then just sticking with education for one moment, I forgot to mention this earlier, but regionalization, that's something the study is going to be funded by a state grant. It was announced.
$168,000.
That's good.
And we have, next week is their first meeting.
Oh, okay.
I talked to Joe Jalman, the alderman over in Ansonia, and so they have their 5, our 5, and then the state board of ed is going to have, I guess, call a mediator, and they're going to sit down in that room and
it's going to start. It's going to be finally like a conclusive study.
Yeah, and I mean, how many years you've been living here, Carmen? How many years everybody was against it. And with our first 6 months in here, we were able to pull that together, too. So I think this administration is doing some good things now, working together, especially with regionalization. So I just want to work with people and try to get Derby moving forward.
And speaking about regionalization, we acquired the Varka building.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right, we got the Varka building. The city owns that now. And our first venture is going to be with the Ansonia to put both the senior centers together. at the Varka Center. And hopefully the rest of the building, it's a very big building. You know, a lot of people drive by that building. They think it's a small building.
Yeah.
It's 26,000 square
That's
feet.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
and,
just hidden in the hills. Sort
Right.
of, yeah.
And, you know, we may be able to put other departments of both towns in the building. So that's something that we're working on.
And we're
right
reaching
now.
out to other towns and other agencies that are interested because the location is excellent, right off of Route 8. We're looking at the property across the street. We're looking at
parking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we're looking at certain things.
And that's like an undeveloped field, which is owned
Yeah.
by the cemetery and then the school
Right,
property.
right.
above.
So
we're-
like St. Peter and Paul Church.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we're looking at certain things to see what we can do over there. I mean, so it's going to be, it's a one level. There's a second level there with an elevator, and the upstairs there's probably 20 offices upstairs. So it's massive. It's a massive building.
We're probably looking for new space. I'm just throwing that out there. I just wanna-
Eugene, let me tell you, for the right
What's your,
price, we'll get
what's
you.
your budget?
What about cheap? Okay, so if the senior center, let's say it moves into Varka eventually, then you've got prime real estate.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what happens to that building?
We're going to sell it.
So it.
That's my job.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's-
recoup the monies that went out and start bringing up that fund balance. We got to get back up there. Got to
Okay.
get more solid
Need some
base that we got.
cash.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then in terms of, because I mean, I'm just thinking like before we went on, like just, I when I first took an apartment in Derby, it was on E Street, and the landlord, this was like 12 years ago, the landlord was like, hey, that Main Street, there's a whole, he wanted to charge me an arm and a leg for rent, and he used Derby's comeback as the reason, and it still hasn't happened. But I bought a house there,
Yeah.
and I paid $180 for my house, but it's the value's gone in the opposite direction for a variety of reasons. So the things you're talking about, I'm sure there's a lot of people in my
It should
in my
help. Yeah,
shoes.
it's going to help. It'll definitely build up.
I don't know where I was going with that. I'll probably just cut that out. But let's talk about the Civil War monument restoration you wanted to touch upon.
Yep. I mean, especially for this weekend, to start to segue into it, we did the Memorial Day flags yesterday at all the cemeteries, and it worked out good because a lot of the vets that do it right now are in their 70s and 80s. A couple of them are on oxygen and stuff like that. So we put out Evelyn Browning, one of our older ladies. She put out a request for people to come, and we ended up with 30-something people there. You were there at Oak Cliff Cemetery, Eugene, and the vets that were there were like, wow, this is the most we ever had.
Yeah, it was scheduled for 9 a.m. I got there at 8:45, and they were like halfway done.
Oh, yeah. We did Oak Cliff, we did St. Peter and Paul's, and then we did St. Michael's Cemetery in an hour. And these guys were just like, oh, my God, it's never been that quick. And when Mount St. Peter's, we only had to do a section of it because Derby, Ansonia, and Shelton take care of it so big. So we were able to do it within a couple hours. So that was great. Next year, we're going to advertise a little bit more. Hopefully, I put it on my Facebook, and a lot of people, I wish we knew about it. They wanted to bring their kids and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a big event next year. And then going into that, the Civil War monument on the green is going to be completed. They're putting the final touches on it. We are going to do a little service after the parade come I know you're not going to know about it, but come Monday.
This will be after that, but it will have happened.
But we're going to do a little service. Hopefully it doesn't rain on us, but it's going to be a rededication. And then in the summertime, during one of our concerts in the farmer market, in between that, we're going to do a celebration of the monument. And so that's going to be a big thing in the summer. We're going to advertise that, and we want to get the vets and the Elks, hopefully, and Boy Scouts and everybody down there just to do a celebration with that, and Shelton, because Shelton's part of this also.
Yeah, and the monument restoration is just unbelievable. Like Jack Walsh put a photo on his Facebook page, and somebody asked him, "What do they buy new cannons?" Because it looks like
absolutely
because they had been sunken into the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're positioned perfectly. Now I'm like,
right. And a shout out to Jamie Cohen for all the hard work and dedication he has given.
I think he gave us a number today. It was around like 70-ish thousand.
That was raised.
That was raised for all that.
Yeah.
He's like the magic man.
He is.
Things
he
just
is.
happen.
Absolutely.
So, is there anything else you wanted to touch upon before we call it a day?
Well, I just want to thank everybody. I do those guest bartending gigs, and in the 4 months that I did it, been averaging over $4,000. We averaged over $4,000 for local charities.
I'm still recovering from the one I attended.
That's what it's all about. I was glad you guys could show up, and we got a couple more coming up. and we'll announce it. And we're looking for some charities to. I'd like to keep it in Derby, basically, and so those have been going good. So I'm happy I've been doing that.
And then Carmen.
Just two things I like to touch upon. Don't know if the city residents know that much about it, but the Barron Block has been sold.
Oh, yes,
and
I meant to ask.
And the closing on the Barron Block is supposed to be next Friday. Also on Hawkins Street, the bids just went out. We're taking down 3 more buildings. So the Blight Department, Andy Cota, Jim Watson, the whole building department has been working very hard. And I've chaired the Blight Committee for 6 years, and it's just what Derby's doing now. We're going after the blight, and we're continuing. And so these 3 buildings will be coming down probably by midsummer.
Yeah, and the Barron Block, that is welcome news, because that's just a big black eye sitting there, because now it's been just sort of sitting there for a couple of years. There's graffiti on it, but
the developers coming in they've done projects out of town, other cities and stuff like that, big buildings like that, and they're going to be working in conjunction with the housing to put people in there for vouchers and stuff like that. So it's gonna work out very well, very well. And then there's also there's a community garden right around the corner from there.
Yes,
we worked with the United Way.
Opened, yep.
Is that the Irving School one or another?
No, that's the one on Olivia and 5th.
Oh, no, okay.
On the corner.
Oh, wow.
They did a beautiful job.
Yeah,
that's an amazing
white
program.
fence, beautiful.
Yeah. We're trying to keep that up. And plus, you asked me what else I've been doing. I've been driving around town nonstop. They all know my blue pickup truck. And I've been stopping at places that have been known as litter places, some of the stores and stuff. I've been walking in there, talking to the owners. They've been sending out their employees, picking stuff up. Certain loitering places I've been stopping by. I'm getting good responses.
That's why I ran into you at the community center that night. I was coming out with my kid, because that had been...
Absolutely. Yep.
Although I haven't seen that problem ever since whatever the city did.
I talked to Chief Narowski. We have the officers going down there. At first, they were like, what's going on? And then I got my first response report on it, and they said, there was nothing going on. I go, great. That's the end result I want. Nothing going on. So they're going to see the officers down there. They're going to see them out of their cars, talking to the people, and that's what I want. And I want to engage the residents out there. There's a lot of good residents down there. A few of them from a couple of the streets came to my office with concerns. They know I'm a police officer, and they know I can get some stuff done. So, with the help of the police department, I'm out there, and I'm seeing some results on it. So, and I think the residents are too.
Okay. And then I'll just pick your brain for a second, Carmen. Any new businesses coming in, or any new shops or retail storefronts being filled, or anything like that? People always love that.
Right.
Of course, I saved it
to
the
end. We have a lot on paper that have not, in conjunction with Big Y, there may be a couple other prospective tenants that will be coming to the same facility. Can't say right now, but... the landlord has already talked to us about it.
He's looking to fill. I mean, obviously,
yes. So,
how about Elizabeth Street? How's that doing? I know there's sort of turnover with a lot of the stores there.
A lot of small stores. Yes, we have the young lady. She's putting in a boutique shop.
Okay.
Yep.
And
that should be opening very shortly.
United Cigar.
Pulled a permit for the liquor store
right next to that.
Oh,
so
no
he's
kidding.
taking my old headquarters.
Right.
In the Arts.
Valley Arts Council.
And that's going to be a new liquor store over there. And we're trying to find a place for the Arts Council right now. So Rich DiCarlo was asking for a spot. So we're looking right now.
All right. We'll be moving in with them. All right. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add?
No,
I guess that's it.
Thanks for getting everything out there, Eugene. Every time we call you, you get the information out there, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're not mad at me yet. Give a couple of more months.
Nah, Eugene. Right. Not you.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy.
You're welcome.
Hundreds of years we brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding, TV sucking ideas from our head, public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur, yeah, ride the dinosaur. Our readers are in the opens each day, yeah.